So today's task is daily reflections. And what that means, when you have a look at your worksheet, you will see a table that is up there. And I want you to work through completing the table with asking some really difficult questions. So you'll notice the first column is entitled Reactions. Now, this is where I want you to sit at the end of the day. And it's very key. This one needs to be at the end of your day because you're reflecting back on all of your actions and reactions of the day. So these can be external, but they can also be your internal actions and reactions. So what do I mean by that? We all have those moments where somebody says something or, there's some sort of situation that we're involved in, and we start that internal mantra in our head. You know what I'm talking about. You start telling yourself you're not good enough to be able to do that, or everybody's going to figure me out. They're going to figure out that I'm not good enough for this job, or I'm going to fail at this, or those types of things. And we all do it. It's actually very common, and it's been proven that everybody really does have this kind of language that pops up from time to time. So it just really depends on what you do with that language. So that's what this particular activity is all about. So sit at your end of your day and actually fill in the reactions box. If you need more spots, then just use a journal or get an extra piece of paper or whatever. And you're literally just going to write down what the reaction was. So you can be very specific if you want and tell yourself what the reaction was, or you could just say something like negative thoughts. Or negative thoughts when asked to do an extra job at work, something like that in terms of how specific you get. So this is the most difficult part of this particular challenge. It is not an easy thing to actually self-reflect to this type of level where you're actually answering the question of what you are gaining by doing what you're doing. Let me assure you, every single person on the planet does this. We are doing every single thing that we do, including our internal dialogue, including our actual actions, the way that we act and react towards one another. Every single thing that we do, we are doing because we get something out of it. It's not always something positive that we are gaining from it, or we're not necessarily going about it in a positive way in order to get that positive thing. So for example, my comfort zone used to be this place of self-destruction where I would remind myself that I was ugly, stupid, worthless, and useless. It was like a safety blanket around me. And as weird as it sounds, I'm sure most of you can relate that when I would say those words to myself, as bad as that would make me feel, pulling me right back down into that spot, it actually felt so comfortable that it felt safe and it felt inviting and it cheered me up a bit in a weird kind of way. So while I was going about life experiencing things by choosing to actually see evidence that I was too stupid or too ugly or too useless or worthless to be able to accomplish this, that, or gain that, amazing partner or whatever it was, I was seeing evidence to support that, which would make me feel really crummy. And then I would pull out the mantra to remind myself, well, of course you don't get to have this, Lisa. You're too stupid for that, or whatever it was, which of course would make me feel really crummy. But because that would pull me back down into that comfort zone, it very strangely would also provide me with a real sense of comfort, right? So I was meeting a need. What I was gaining out of that was my safe place. I was gaining the security of being in that safe place, the familiarity of being in that safe place. And that actually made me feel safe. And in a weird way, almost cheered me up in a sense, right? Because it was proving that I was right. And everybody wants to be right, don't they? So obviously I was not meeting a need in a positive way, and I wasn't even meeting a positive need. It's all right to have the need of wanting to be safe and secured and loved, of course. But in our efforts of gaining that, we don't necessarily go about it in a fabulous way. So now we're going to take it one step further and actually look at what needs were being met by you having that reaction, whether it was internal or an actual external reaction, doesn't matter. First, the effort needs to go into figuring out what you gained from it. And now the effort needs to go in to figure out what the actual need was. Because most of you will end up discovering that the need is genuine. The need is actually not the thing that needs to change. What needs to change is how we're going about meeting that need. So if I use the example of a comfort zone where you have comfort, you feel safe, you feel secure, maybe even you feel loved in this tiny space that we call a comfort zone. Every time you try to venture out of that space, it kind of puts you in a place of panic and makes you feel like you are vulnerable. So you're not safe, maybe you're not secure, maybe you're not loved. And so you pull yourself back down into this comfort zone. And over time, if we continue to do that, our comfort zone is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. We'll become less and less comfortable with some of the other things that we used to be able to do and get away with and still have that feeling of comfort. So the alternative ways section is for you to start looking at how can I actually start expanding my comfort zone instead of allowing it to shrink. So is there a way that I can come out of this place without bringing myself into such a state of panic? So in other words, is there a way that you can still meet the need, you can still gain what it is that you're looking to gain, but in a positive way? So things that would be very tangible, something that you're not going to revamp and become a totally different person overnight, but very tangible, small steps that you can take. So for example, if your reaction was that you started your negative mantra in your head when your boss had some constructive criticism for you on a piece of work that you presented, right? So you know what the reaction is and you know what brought it on. What you gained from that was probably, I'm going to guess, bringing you back into your comfort zone, just like how I used to do, right? The need that was being met was that by going back into the comfort zone, you now were in a place of safety and security, where you felt like you had love of at least yourself. And again, in a weird way, I understand that this is not a loving space at all when you're telling yourself these negative things. However, it does become a place of safety. And so now the alternative is going to, instead of telling yourself that, okay, the next time this happens, I'm going to smile and rejoice in this wonderful criticism that I'm getting, that's probably not tangible. That's not probably realistic. But what you could do is you could catch yourself when you start your mantra, and you can actually be aware of the fact that that is what you are doing. You are trying to bring yourself back down to the comfort zone so you can stop the panic and the chaos and you can have that feeling of safety. So that could be the very first step, and you just allow yourself that alternative way for however long you need to before you're ready to now tackle it in another way. So maybe next will be, okay, I will recognize that that is what I'm doing, and then I will replace those thoughts with positive thoughts. Or I will tell myself, my boss is trying to help me. Thus, the criticism that is happening here is constructive, right? It was something along those lines. So this can apply to absolutely anything in your life.